Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number 283. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, hopefully you'll notice, I have brought some pillows in from my bedroom to try and soften the sound, so hopefully I have better dulcet tones. I've taken on the feedback and a few people have said, Ben, do you know what? The sound on your show could be better. I'm going to invest in some posh equipment. But I'm a bit of a budget guy, if I'm honest. Like, you know, I drive around in a fairly budget car and I do fairly budget things and I wear fairly budget clothes. So to actually buy like £1,000 worth of mic and all that kind of stuff, I'm not really down with that. I'm just down with the content. So hopefully if I can keep bringing you incredible content, then that is really the aim of the game. And that's probably why, I checked the other week and Ben Coomber Radio had hit number 7 in the world of the health charts on iTunes, which is pretty fucking cool. Anyway, to my guest. My guest today has been in the industry a long time. He's been shaking about a long time. He's been on the stage in pants quite a few times. He works with one of the biggest fitness companies in the world, Lee Constantinou. Hello.
Lee Constantinou, but I'll take
Constantinou.
that.
Fuck.
Constantinou. No one ever gets it right, so you know what? You're not the first one, Ben.
Mate, we even did sound tests. I asked you your name and you said it. But I think it's because when I look at your name, I want to pronounce every bit of it.
That's cool. I'm not offended. Anyone can say what they want as long as they don't skip any letters. So,
so you do have to pronounce it all.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it?
Mate, my first name makes up for it, but it's like, oh, cool, Lee, what's your surname? And then it's just like, I spell it before I say it usually if I'm like at the doctor's or something. I normally say my surname by spelling it out.
Yeah. And you can't even shorten it. Like, you shorten a first name to, like, you know, slang it up, cool it up. But you can't shorten a surname. Like, it's stuck. It's non-negotiable.
It's been a tough one. You know, social media has been a nightmare trying to, like, get my name on everything. It's too many letters for it.
Mate, first world problems.
You know what I mean?
So, Lee, we've met each other on and off, kind of like at fitness events, expos. You've had abs, I haven't. Give me a little bit of background on why you got into fitness and kind of the journey that you've been through to date, which has been one of lots of different things, really.
Yeah, I started my journey 13 years old, getting into fitness. So I was overcoming like being overweight, asthmatic, and really lacking self-confidence as a teenager. So my dad took me to karate 13 years old to try and get rid of my body fat and help me get more confidence and get rid of my asthma. And that was my first step into the world of like improving my body and my health. And 4 years later, I got to the black belt. It was a big achievement for me because it was the first thing that I'd found I was good at, because it's in school at sports. I was always kind of, last pick, back of the race. I was never like super athletic. And karate was the thing that I found passion in because I was good at it. So I kept that going. I was going 4, 5, 6 days a week and just really pressing on because the black belt was the goal. And then in between like the age of 15, 16, I started going to the gym. I wanted to see my body shape change as well as, my fitness levels. And so I started lifting weights, going to the gym with my brother. We just, bodybuilding style splits 3 days a week. And that was my first taste of bodybuilding style training. So that took me into the world of like improving my body, my aesthetics. And then 4 years later, after weight training, after my university days of karate, I decided, right, I'm going to do a bodybuilding competition, a natural bodybuilding show. And then I got the bug and the taste for it. And from the age of 20 to now 28, I've been competing, year on, year off through natural bodybuilding, through fitness, through men's physique. And to this day, I've done about 13 competitions and won numerous titles in each of the federations, the categories. And my journey is kind of taken from the overweight, asthmatic, insecure kid to, someone who is very confident in themselves, achieved, several bodybuilding physique titles. But now my focus is on helping other people do that, get through their challenges, their obstacles, and train people to become the better version of themselves that they visualize.
When you moved into kind of like more the gym training, did you leave karate behind?
So it was a transition period. From about 15, 16, I was doing both very intensely. Karate was still my focus because it was something that I enjoyed, and I did it throughout university, and I competed with the university team, and I was still going to the gym, but there was a point of like weight training was not necessarily benefiting karate because you need to be really light and supple, and having bulky muscle in karate isn't an advantage. But it was always something that I would work around because I wanted to have the aesthetics as well as the ability. So I kind of made it work somehow for the 4 years. But then when university finished, that was when my karate career stopped because I went back home and my routine had changed, and just bodybuilding became my focus and something that I really wanted to give my all into. So it just became a point of like deciding I'm going all in on this now.
Have you ever been back to karate, or is it something you literally just left?
It's very strange, like I've had temptations in the past to go back to it, but because it's been something that you've got to really build into your routine, I haven't found, because I've moved several times in the past 6 years. There's not been a club that I've been able to go to and stick it out. So I actually haven't gone to any martial arts. In fact, karate itself, I've gone to like Muay Thai, I've done some Wing Chun, so I've done some other styles since, but I haven't gone all in on, getting back into it. I might do later on.
Fair enough. So you recently retired from kind of doing the bodybuilding, the physique side of it. What made you say now is the time?
You know what? There's never a right time to start or stop anything, I believe. And the thing for me that made me realize it was time to stop this thing that I was doing was realizing that I'd got everything from it that I had wanted, which was the fulfillment of achieving something with my physique. I had done many federations over many years, and I feel like there was nothing more to prove. There wasn't. If I'd continued doing it, it would be just to stroke my ego and to, get comments from people and reassurance when I don't need that anymore. I realized I don't need people to tell me I'm good enough. I don't need people to put me on the stage and put me in a first, second, or third or last place. I don't need people to tell me I'm good enough. And I've realized my self-worth is a lot more than being judged by people who are basing it on their opinion. And that was a really big thing for me to acknowledge and be like, right, I don't need that anymore. I'm really happy with myself. I've reached the top of where I feel naturally I can take this as, something I'm really proud of, as doing it as a natural athlete for all these years. And I don't want to get into that world, and I don't want to go further into the world of bodybuilding that involves taking drugs and going a bit further into that side of it. I do this for my health. And so that was a really big thing for me to readdress why I started it in the first place. Why I got into bodybuilding was to improve my body, but ultimately my health. And so since taking that step out of, I am now doing this for competing, I've been so much happier. I've been a lot more aware of everything else around me. I've been a lot more balanced in my life, taken a bit more of a holistic approach to my nutrition, trying new things. I'm less focused on being super strict on macros. I'm less rigid with my training. I'm trying some other styles of training out. I've just become so much more open to the other aspects of fitness and health that I've neglected because I've been so focused on body image and muscle tissue and body fat. So it's been quite a revelation or something. It's been quite a revolution for me to make that change.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's one of the reasons I respect and like what you do in fitness, because you are genuinely, and I mean this 100%, you're genuinely one of the few people that I've met in fitness that for me come at physique development from the right way, from a place of like minimal ego. And don't get me wrong, we've all got ego in us. Like, we all want to look good. You're an alpha male, I'm an alpha male. I'm designed to go and hunt shit and kill shit and look manly and get chicks and stuff. That's what we're designed to do. We're men. but you don't, like you've said, you're not expecting, like if you put a picture up on social media, you're not like, oh my god, that didn't get as many likes as last time, and oh yeah, how did my abs look, and the lighting. I'm like, the reason why, I'm not going to say I paint a bad perspective on bodybuilding physique, because I don't, but there's such a large chunk of me that dislikes the way people come at bodybuilding, because so much of it is from the wrong reasons. And everyone's got their journey, right? And we kind of transition into things and it empowers us. But not enough people are standing back and saying, do you know, actually, why am I doing this? And I see so much of this on social media, and it pains me to see some of the stuff that people post. And I'm just like, can't you be comfortable with yourself for just one day without someone else saying you're enough?
You know what I mean? It's perspective, totally. What you just said about taking a step out of your little bubble, your little competitive world that you're really like tunnel vision focused on, and taking a step out and just looking at everything. And that's what I've done this year. I've taken a step back to look at everything, look at what I'm putting out on social media, look at the message, most importantly, and realizing that you're so much more than just the body that you have. I know it's really hard now with social media because everything is so visual, especially Instagram, but it's really important that people realize there's so much more than the physique that they can bring to a stage. And I know I'm more, and I want to give more to people than just my abs. You know what I'm saying? It's like, bang, I want to give more people that message. That's what it is. It's such an important thing that people need to be aware of, because unless you become self-aware, you're not going to make a change. And that's a big thing that I've learned, is that becoming self-aware and realizing what you're doing and why you're doing it allows you to make a change.
I haven't finished listening to the whole interview yet, but it's a fascinating interview. I don't know if you've listened to it. Joe Rogan interviewed Dorian Yates on his show, his podcast.
Okay.
I'd really recommend a listen. It's fantastic. It's maybe want to try and get Dorian Yates on this podcast, but Dorian was talking a lot about kind of like the old school bodybuilding and what he felt it empowered people to do. And I think if you look at any kind of slightly extreme environment, and bodybuilding is an extreme environment to a degree, depending on how you look at it. And he sort of said, like, bodybuilding taught me to be resilient in every aspect of my life. It taught me how to push myself, block off the world when I needed to, focus on something so I could become so successful at it. And actually, I'm wondering if, because we have so much information available to us now, that actually there is far less of a struggle to look for answers. Now, if I took someone that was 18 years old and taught them about the basics of training and diet and really honed them in, they'd get results pretty decent. Like 2 years' time, they'd have a pretty decent rig on them because we know so much. But Dorian was kind of saying, I didn't know any of that. I had to find it out. I had to find it out by grinding and changing and finding out what a carb did and all this kind of stuff. So I'm just, I don't know what my point is, but, what I want...
I kind of know what you're saying. You're kind of saying like how things are a lot easier, so to speak, for someone coming into the world now, that they won't have to learn some of these hard lessons.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot of hard lessons because I started getting into the getting on stage in pants thing at 20 years old. There was no flexible dieting, there was no IFYM, there was only chicken, broccoli and rice diets around. And I had to learn the hard way from experiencing these like really unsustainable diets and low carb diets, that there is always a better way. I've done 13 comps, and every single time I've done a preparation, I've done something differently because I'm always trying to find a sustainable approach, an approach that I can keep going after I compete. And that's what it's been about for me. The journey's been about learning how I can create a lifestyle out of this 12, 14, 16 week preparation that I can keep going with. And I've spent 13 years trying to find it, you know what I mean? And I really feel like it's only now I've found my stride of eating and training and balancing life around it. I used to eat every 2 hours on the dot when I got into it. It was really like, I was like Dorian Yates, but like 100 pounds lighter, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe more. It was just very intense, and you do learn a lot through these like extreme ways of doing it. I've certainly learned a lot of those lessons through my approaches as well.
You brought up the kind of topic of drugs in sport, physique, bodybuilding and stuff, do you wish there was more openness around it?
Definitely. I feel like, especially with the fitness and physique categories now, where they're going more for a look, I think there's a lot more going on behind the scenes that we know about. I feel like it would definitely invite more people in from the outside world to take part, and it would put a lot of the other people off, because it's going to allow people to feel like this is attainable, this is realistic. Certainly whenever I've done really well or won titles, I've had people kind of reach out and be like, wow, I didn't think someone could win naturally. You know what I mean? And that's like, the message to me is like, wow, do you really think that you have to be on something to win competitions? And I do genuinely wish one day there was a lot more stringent drug testing across all federations, not just the natural bodybuilding ones, you know what I mean? To make people realize that they can take part, and if they kind of train hard and eat the right foods, the right amounts, and they pay their dues, you know what I mean? But it's not something I preach and I stick down people's throat, because I respect that everyone has their own decisions and their own reasons for doing things. But the sport itself, I think there's a fear from federations. I think there's a fear that people won't compete if they feel like they may get found out if there was testing in all of them. You know what I mean? It's interesting because obviously you've got sport and athletics where, they drug test and stuff, but people still get found out. And I feel like if bodybuilding was a lot more stringent on drug use, many people would be turned away, and therefore money wouldn't be coming into the federations anymore. And then they won't make as much profits, etc. So I feel like there's more to it than just the physiques that are coming into the stage.
Oh, definitely. And everything's always intertwined into money. The problem that I have as an educator and a coach perspective is the only thing that's coming out of like top level bodybuilding that I see that affects the lower level is at some level body dysmorphia. There's not often a big positive upside. There's a lot more of what I see as a downside. And I'm the same as you. I have no problem with people taking drugs, doing whatever the fuck they like. But what I have a problem with is someone saying, oh yeah, I haven't used them. When I'm looking at them going, I can see you've used them. You are not of natural man. And, the problem is there's going to be a point in time where there's a tipping point, because, we've got this film, Icarus, on Netflix at the moment. Have you watched it?
I haven't. Let me check.
You've got to go and watch it, man. You've got to watch it. And, people have sort of contacted me and said, do you think it's an isolated condition? I'm like, it's not. Of course it's not an isolated condition. Nearly every country in the world has probably got at some level a public, I'm not going to say public, but a large scale or small scale doping program. And the thing is at some point, the general population, and we're talking about 98% of people, we've got to show them a level of faith. It's like, I've got to be able to say to someone, this is what you can attain from a non-drug perspective. This is what you can attain from a drug perspective. And that's just real talk. It's just honesty. You make the decision whether that's for you, or you make the decision if that's for you. This is the consequences, these are the upsides, and this is the cost.
Totally. That would be an ideal world, right? But I guess, one day something like that has to happen, because there's going to be we're in an age now where there's probably a lot more drug use and abuse than ever before, particularly in people trying to improve their body shapes. But until that day comes that people start suffering with health problems later on, whatever else comes with it, will they start being more aware and trying to make changes and not choose that route? You know what I mean? I feel like young people nowadays, 15, 16, are jumping into that world without any knowledge and just very blindly taking it for the quick result that they want to see, but not thinking of the long-term effects. They're thinking very short-term. And I feel like a lot of people are doing that now. We're doing things very impulsively as a generation. And people get more tattoos than ever before. They get piercings in random places. People go on drugs to improve their performance and recreation. So I feel like it's just something that's happening in the world as a whole. And until there's going to be a day when people start experiencing the adverse effects of what they're doing, do they realize that they need to make a change?
Here's a theory, right? in the fitness industry, you've got a huge amount of ego, which is a problem. We've identified that. Now, with that ego, it might make people think, okay, if I do this and are not completely honest about it, that will basically give me a leg up compared to the guy that is honest about it, because I've almost got a trick that I've not revealed.
Yeah.
The reason why I say that is because I've always said to myself, if I ever took any kind of steroid, I would be 100% honest about it and document the journey. Now, hear me out. This is why I would do some kind of steroid. I am of the kind of predisposition that I like to try and push my body. I also like to experiment. I like to find out things. So, for example, if I was going to take steroids, I'd want to see what would really change in me physiologically. I'd probably track some markers. I'd track literally how kind of like girths, like wrists and ankles would change, because that's something that's really not going to... Well, it hasn't changed in me in like freaking 10 years. You know, they're still like little sticks. You know, I might do some races and I might see how fast I become, or, you know, how much more oxygen I can deliver. I'd want that on literally a purely personal scientific level, and not to say I'm now better than you.
Right. No, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's that, yeah, totally. And I think, like, you're so right. It's all about ego, man. And the way I'm seeing young guys coming into the industry or getting into fitness and twice the size of me in half the space and a fraction of the space of time, it's just like, I just like feel like shaking her and being like, do you know, why? Like, why do you do it? And most of the time it's because they want to win a piece of silverware to put on a mantelpiece and say that they're the best physique in the world, or England, or wherever it is. You know what I'm saying? It's like, is that your worth? And how long will that live for? Because I've won British titles and the next day I go back to working in a retail job. You know, that's the reality we're in. But people feel like this is going to put them on this pedestal and everything's going to come to them. They're going to get sponsorships. They're going to get opportunity after opportunity, like landing on their doorstep. Nothing happens the next day. You have to go out there and do the work. So it just, people are getting more success in the industry without having to establish themselves for their physique. You're one of the prime examples of that. You've never even spoken about doing a bodybuilding competition, but you've had all this success, and it's got nothing to do with the physique that you're putting out there, but everything else around it. You know what I mean? And I feel like if people realize that they don't have to just define themselves by their physique, that they can have success in the industry. Because that's what I feel a lot of people are trying to do. They're trying to get success in the fitness world by competing, and then trying to get a sponsorship, and then trying to work as an online coach from their home, you know, sending out PDF plans. Like, they have this ideal world, but they don't actually understand that there's so much more to it. You know what I mean?
Mate, it's a kind of, it is an interesting time for fitness. And, you know, there's days where I genuinely wake up and I have so much hunger for everything, and then there is days where I look up and you're kind of embroiled in a couple of, you know, conversations online and arguments, and you just think all of those conversations are quite often driven by, you know, someone's ego, someone's faulty perception of stuff. And I'm like, and I suppose it's been a long-held beef of mine with fitness, is like, when did everything become so competitive, when fitness is about personal pursuit of being better and being healthier and happier, rather than like, literally, you know, I've got a bigger squat than me. And I've had arguments with people online where they've like, you know, they're like, show me what you can squat. And I'm like, I don't even give a fuck what I can squat, let alone what you can squat compared to me. I don't even squat heavy because I just don't care about it. And that's why I always challenge why someone does a particular thing in fitness and say to them, tell me why you do it. Because quite often there's a faulty sort of ideal behind what the outcome will be.
Totally. I think it stems from insecurity a lot of the time. They're insecure with their body image, their ability to do exercise, and so they feel like they need to constantly compare to other people to make themselves feel better. There's a lot of insecurity and a lot of, you know, I got into the fitness world because of insecurity in the first place. And I've become aware that that's why I got into it. But a lot of people don't become aware that that's why they got into it. So they're always constantly on the back foot trying to see what someone else can do in the gym and then give it a go, or see someone else's body and then see what they have or haven't got. And I feel like it's all coming out through social media nowadays in competition and arguments, because there's something inside them that they're not secure about. Because if you are totally secure, you wouldn't care about anybody else, right?
All right, let's leave the moaning for a bit. We were sort of postulating on some things that we are seeing emerging in fitness and that we're kind of looking at ourselves. And you brought up the great topic of kind of plant-based nutrition before we started, and that you are looking and experimenting with different ideas and maybe replacing a few things in your diet. Starting from the top, what's made you think about maybe being a bit more plant-based?
First and foremost, it's health. For me, it's, going back to why I started this whole lifestyle. For me, it was health. And so, watched a few documentaries, as you do on Netflix, and becoming a little bit more aware of the world rather than being ignorant towards it. Because I would be that guy who would, take the mick, as a joke, of course, at my friends who are vegetarian and vegan. But there'd always be that side of me that was curious as to why they're doing it. But it's not been something I've focused on because of the bodybuilding and physique stuff. I've been quite ignorant to say that you can't get a physique without eating meat. And most people will say that, right? Most people will assume that, who are in that world or trying to improve their body. But I've taken a step back to understand it, and I've just become a bit more aware of the fact that there are people out there who are surviving and improving their bodies and their health, and they're on a plant-based diet. And I guess I'm trying to get into their world to understand what they're doing and the benefits of doing it. And what it's opening my eyes to variety, something that, I haven't had a lot of, being quite regimented with my nutrition and being quite macro focused. And since getting a bit more on the micro focused and a bit more aware of, wanting to have that range of nutrients in my diet, a more nutrient dense diet, you get that from plant-based foods, right? So that has made me become more aware of what's out there in terms of protein sources, but then realizing that there's a whole other array of vitamins and minerals that you'll get from these foods that you won't get from just a chicken breast. And so I've just been like, okay, if I can get all these other vitamins and minerals and get my protein, why don't I start adding them into my foods and my meals to bulk out the protein, and then maybe take back a little bit of the animal protein sources. And that's something I've been doing, and then also including, some plant-based protein powders. And as we spoke about earlier, you guys have just brought out your one, and people are becoming a little bit more aware of the benefits of plant-based nutrition these days. And I've certainly spoken to a lot of friends who have done it and had great success. And that, I think, is where it starts. It starts with a few people around you who are doing it with success, and then you can almost see and believe that it's going to work. And I feel like there is this transition happening now. More people are getting into that world. More people are going to experiment with plant-based foods. But then massively on a sustainability scale is where it's all at. The world that we're in right now, agriculture, and feeding the animals and the earth and all of the effects that this is having, on where we live, is the deeper level of all of this. So health is like my I guess my selfish reason for wanting to get into it, but then on a larger scale, the environment and the positive effects that it can have by having a bit less meat and having more plant-based foods.
To start on the practical food level, do you think it's made you feel almost like an everyday person? Because quite often when personal trainers think about food and advising a client, all of it seems so obvious. Just eat an omelette with vegetables for breakfast. And when you're at a level where you're eating cornflakes for breakfast, there doesn't always seem like a really logical transition. But as the coach knowing the stuff, it seems really logical that you would eat that rather than that. But putting yourself into your shoes, you might be a guy that was eating a vegetable omelette for breakfast, but now you're considering a plant-based diet, and you might say, right, what do I now eat for breakfast? And you have to go through these really kind of baby steps of like, right, okay, so a protein source, let me think about what I've got available in terms of plant-based, and then would I eat that for breakfast, wouldn't I? And it's almost like I get the impression that you've had to regress yourself a little bit and go back to like vegan baby steps. And actually, it probably makes you think about how a client feels where we make these statements of like, yeah, just eat a vegetable omelette, like duh.
Sounds obvious. Yeah, no, totally. I haven't gone plant-based totally.
Yeah.
Like I've incorporated it still. I've just kind of tried to cut back on meat, but it certainly made me think a lot more and plan a bit more and become like, when I go food shopping, it's taking me longer because I'm like, right, let me get beans and let me get some lentils, and you know what I mean? Trying to like really think about a meal that I'm going to make. And I've spoken to a friend of mine. I was like, right, what do you have for lunch? You know, I feel like I'm starting out again, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to become aware of a habit that I've had for 8 years of eating very, you know, structured meals, so to speak. But it's almost like starting again. You're right, and but it's quite fun. It's fun. It's like, you know, exciting to be like, oh, what should I make today that I didn't have yesterday? You know what I mean? And that's quite a nice thing, because I'm looking forward to meals now rather than just eating for fuel. There's a bit more of an element of excitement about eating something just because it's got some beans in it or something else. You know what I mean? So it's a very slow transition for me. I'm not saying, you know, I'm not going to say, oh, I'm now going plant-based, but I'm not against the concept as I would have been in the past. I'm not ignorant to it. I'm more open to it, and I'm experimenting and I'm trying. You know, I would like to say I can keep everything I've built over the years and incorporate all these plant-based foods and not change, you know, my physique for the worse, and if anything, improve it. And I think that in itself will be quite a powerful message for people that, you know, if we are trying to go that direction in the world, I've done it myself as an example, and actually other health markers have improved as a result. But I'm not there yet fully, because I still need to research and understand it more. You know, like you like to understand why you're doing things on a deeper level. But I'm certainly just becoming more aware and open to that lifestyle and the benefits it can bring me.
Yeah, I'm actually going to do a month of going largely plant-based at some point. I haven't decided when, because I think with everything in life you have to decide when is the right time. You know, I don't want to do it in a month where I've got tons of travel and it has to put a big burden on my time, again, thinking about it and really planning when I just want to get on and do my shit. Yeah. But, you know, I think it's an interesting process, and it's like I've been through the process of doing paleo, doing all sorts of different diets. Why would I not go and try being vegan for a month? Like, you know, whether I agree with some aspects or don't with some of the belief systems around it, you have to kind of go there to find out what you're going to take away from it. And as a coach, I always try and teach my students, go into that concept, live it, come out of it, take away the benefits, and do it with the next thing. It's like strength training. What do you enjoy from it? What would you take away? The same with hypertrophy, running, everything. It's about building the knowledge base. And I do think there's a lot of people that are resistant online by just saying, oh, veganism is a load of shit, like I'm not going to do it. I'm like, well, try it and learn something from it.
Yeah, it's just pure ignorance in the industry and people thinking like they know best, right? It's definitely, again, just people not being humble enough to try new things and to try different ways. You know, a lot of people are stuck in old school bodybuilding mentalities of their training and ignorant to the fact that carbohydrates are really important in a diet for fuel and retaining muscle. And I think there's a lot of people who just really are stuck in their ways, and until it's like, you know, until there's a force for change, they're going to be like, no, this has worked for me, therefore I'm not going to change it. But there's, you know, I think as educators, as trainers, we need to have that awareness, because there are going to be people who come from different walks of life who have different needs that we need to consider, and we have to be able to empathize for them based on not just what we know but what we've experienced. So I think that's a great thing to do, man, and good luck with it.
We'll see. So as a man that started in karate, moved into bodybuilding, has done a lot of physique stuff, is out of it, is very balanced, is happy, is healthy, is living life on his own terms, what does training look like now in a rough week for you?
Training right now, so I'm hitting 4 weight training sessions, kind of bodybuilding style, incorporating some volume, incorporating some strength, incorporating some supersets. So I'm making my bodybuilding style training fun, and then I'm doing like 2 to 3 like Metcon style conditioning workouts as well. So I've built that in, which is quite a new concept for me. Again, spending time around friends in the industry who have done CrossFit, who have done, bodyweight training. And I've been incorporating a bit more of that into my training and just enjoying a different training variable, because training is very much like reps and sets. Whereas, I'm playing around with the time now. I'm playing around with more explosive movements to build a bit more power. So that's quite a fun aspect of my training. I go to yoga once to twice a week, which makes me feel amazing. I feel calm. I feel focused. I feel, again, very balanced and kind of brings me back down. Again, the stretching aspect, the breathing aspect, the meditation. I preach about it to everybody when I get the opportunity, because it's allowed my other training to improve. People think like yoga is this hippie kind of breathing thing, but as an athlete wanting to improve their body or their strength or power, when you get that range and that flexibility, you can do all those things a lot easier. And you can learn to control your breathing, refocus, get rid of stress, and all those things. So that's been a fun aspect of my training. So yeah, it's about 5 or 6 days mixing those types of training together. And I'm not against the idea of having a week off if I go away. I'm not, I'll try new things. I'm gonna get out there and see what else there is to do in terms of like keeping my body fit and healthy. And I'm just more open to trying things, because I'm not focused on the size of my biceps anymore. I'm less focused on, if I don't do arms this week, they're going to shrink. You know what I mean? And ironically, because I've been so less focused on my body image, although, keeping it healthy, I think it's responding better because I'm less focused on the smaller areas. You know what I mean? It's the way it works. And so I think this balance of strength and flexibility and conditioning work is just a nice way of staying lean, fit and healthy and enjoying your training.
One thing I really struggle to get across to people, because you don't see like this instant benefit, is the flexibility work. And there's one thing that really improves my rugby, my daily movement and how I feel, and that's how flexible I am. If I walk out on the rugby pitch and my legs are tight, I can feel my plantar fascia just being a bit tight. I can't be dynamic. I don't feel that I can like sidestep quickly or really move off the mark, because my muscles are literally just not in a good place. They're tight, they're restricted. There's almost a stickiness to them. The same with moving about, like even walking up the stairs, like all these little things. I find that just a little bit of time on my movement pays massive dividends. I find I'm stronger in the gym. I find like my joints don't hurt as much. But trying to get that across to someone, because it's not active work, is really tough.
It's almost like until somebody has an injury and they're having to pay for physio or treatments, that they're going to take action. Because when you realize you're paying for something that isn't bringing you towards pleasure but just taking you away from pain, you might start doing something about it. So I've pulled several muscles in the past, as we all have, who hurt yourselves. And it was when I pulled my QL last year that I had just become even more aware of making sure that that doesn't happen again, because I was out of training and I was paying for treatments. So I was like, in a really bad place, because I couldn't train and do the thing that makes me feel good, and I was paying money to just fix myself. So I think some people have to go through that pain to experience, right, I need to do something that is preventative, is that a word? Yeah. And something that will, stop me from getting injured and make me feel good on a day-to-day basis. Because you're totally right, like feeling good day to day, being able to move and feel, loose and healthy and fit and agile is like the base of where we should all try and find ourselves, because it's no good being good to move for 1 hour of the day but the rest of the day feel like crap. It's about being able to feel good all the other times of the day, and even better when we train. So It's a hard message to get across, but it's something that, again, explaining how I guess the patience of it will pay dividends in the long term. But again, it's about what people want now. People want results right now, don't they? So I guess we're now having to get into their psychology a bit and make them think a bit longer term with their goals and what they actually want, rather than these kind of quick fix results that they were striving for.
I think that's one of the beauties of still being able to work with people in person as a coach, because you get to spend that time building rapport and trust, and they start to really buy into your past and expertise, and you're able to really share, like, no, we should do this stretching thing, we should do this thing. And that sometimes I feel I miss out on that a little bit, being like more of a primarily an online coach, that sometimes people don't go through these processes that I really want them to go through. And that's why I hope that people listen to my podcast, because I've taken them on quite a journey and we've covered so much different information that hopefully they are excuse me, at home applying it and doing this stuff. Because if you miss out on those little bits of the journey, they're sometimes the bits that can bring the biggest reward. Totally. Because we're just focusing on doing. And I say that because most experts that I've interviewed in fitness, and these are people that have been in the industry probably 8 to 10 years plus, will all say, right now I train a bit more for enjoyment and fun. I make sure I look after my joints and flexibility. I'm not quite as neurotic about my diet. Yeah, I do go out and have a beer at the weekend. Like, there's so much balance in people that have been in the game 10 years as opposed to people that have been in the game 3 years that are still kind of like a bit neurotic, a bit obsessed, chasing it. And don't get me wrong, I think you've got to be a bit obsessed and chase it. You've got to get to that point where you're like, do you know what, I've been there. But hopefully you and me and other people are trying to get people to scale back a bit quicker and then just enjoy it a bit more.
Yeah, definitely, man. And almost giving them the lessons that we've learned so they don't have to make the same mistakes. I guess that's the benefit of hiring a coach, investing in a trainer, because it shortcuts them from going through some of the painful processes that we've had to go through and realizations that we've had to have through our training life and the ways we eat. But again, it's some people just will have to learn the hard way, which is a shame. But I guess the more we can repeat the message that we are trying to share, and like you said, your listeners on the podcast who are also your clients and whatnot, they just need to recognize like what we've experienced is where they will be eventually. So why not learn the lessons now? It's a tough one, isn't it? It's a really tough one, but it comes down to humility. It comes down to humbling yourself and being like, right, so this guy is ahead of me. He's experienced the things I've experienced. Let me change my ways. Let me try things a bit differently. And hopefully I can reach the point that he's reached and be even more happier and healthier in my body.
Let's hope, dude. Let's hope. Lee, it's been fascinating talking to you. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
So, if people want to find you after today, where would you like to direct them? Is Facebook your thing? Is it Instagram? Where's the best place to come and hang out with you?
I spend most of my time on Instagram right now, and I'm the same on all social media, which is just at Lee Constantinou or Lee Constantinou. The spelling is very long, so you'll have to go to the Ben's show notes and get the spelling of my name if you want to write it down.
Well, if you put Lee, C-O-N, into Instagram, you are the top pick of Lee
perfect.
Con. So if that helps.
Yeah, perfect. Then yeah, I hang out there a lot. I've been enjoying the stories a little bit more. You can put out bits of bite-sized bits of your day-to-day life. So that's been quite cool to share, because I find Instagram can be quite shallow sometimes with just a picture and a caption. But I've been spending a lot more time for the past few months writing a bit more deep, thoughtful captions and getting people to read between the lines than just look at the fancy picture, you know what I mean? So that's where I've been enjoying spending my time and sharing the messages, man, just constantly trying to repeat and do what we're trying to do, which is share honesty, have integrity about it, and give people the good information that they can apply day to day to make themselves feel better and achieve their fitness goals, man.
Awesome. You're also a one-to-one coach in London?
I am, yeah, a one-to-one. I'm actually about to move to North London to my brother's studio, Blueprint. So I'm excited for that move to a fresh start in a new environment around good people, good trainers, good energy. So I'm really excited about doing that. And just keeping my environment fresh.
Awesome. Right. Well, Lee, thank you very much. For all the people that have listened to the show, I hope you have enjoyed it. I hope a few things have kind of made you think more than anything. Please do go find Lee online if you like what I've said. Engage with him. If you see it crop up on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, give us a retweet, give us a shout out, ask a question. Please engage with the process because we are more than willing to help and expand the things that we've talked about. You know, something has really kind of resonated with you today. Say something. It's really nice to hear that back. If you would like your question answered on one of our Q&A shows, make sure you email in bencoomber@gmail.com with the subject line podcast. If you've never reviewed the show on iTunes before, please do, because it helps hugely. Ben Coomber Radio on iTunes, drop a review in. We are the UK's most reviewed show, but I like to keep getting more shows, because any one more that I can get than Tim Ferriss gives me a little notch on the bedpost. So I will see you next week on next week's show. In the meantime, stay awesome. Goodbye. Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio episode... Don't know. I'll be honest, I absolutely don't know.